Okay, hello Ginger,
Hello.
and welcome to everyone who's listening. This is the Client Transformation Stories series, where we'll be sharing stories of amazing people who've gone from one form of their career and life to another. So they can share their journey, what it was like, how coaching supported them, and any insights that might be supportive to you, the listener. So, Ginger, you had a 20 plus year career in corporate American finance, and you led teams, you led projects, you were involved in healthcare, I believe, and have got a lot of experience in working in organizations and leading teams.
Yes.
And at some point, you decided that wasn't the path anymore. And well, I won't spoil it. I'll let you tell the story. But now you've taken a step back. You've refocused on your health, on your well-being, on what you really want from life. And life looks quite different right now. Tell us a little bit about what life is like for you right now and what you're excited about.
Okay, terrific. So, Amina, thank you so much for asking to speak with me. I know no one can see me, but I'm smiling ear to ear as the last question you asked, like, what does life look like right now? And I will say, I mean, for me, it's Monday mid-morning, and I'm sitting here having a conversation with you versus being in back-to-back meetings nonstop, so stressed out, talking about things that just weren't my truth, right? Like they just weren't things that mattered to me. So I'm so incredibly grateful. And I have to come clean. If I don't know if I told you it was like 20 years, but I just kind of did my math of my age on my fingers, and it was more like 30 plus years in the corporate world, just so you know.
Right,
So
thank you.
yeah, so 30 plus years working in the corporate world. And it's not like I just figured out a couple years ago that this isn't what I wanted to do. I think it's more been like I was successful and I was climbing the corporate ladder. And, I was doing what I kind of thought I was supposed to do, like in this world by society standards. I was making money, had good titles, and I was just kind of going about it. Yet as the years went on, and especially up until, past several years, it became increasingly more difficult to continue to do the job I was being paid to do because it just wasn't what I thought I was here to do. And I was very stressed out. And, I started having health issues, and I know it was from stress. That was what the doctors, many different kinds of doctors, all alluded back to. You're really, really, really stressed, and it's taking a toll on your body and your health. And so I made the decision almost 2 years ago to take time off, to take, a leave from my job.
Hmm.
And when I took that leave, it felt necessary, but it was still a struggle to step away. Like, what's everyone going to think? Blah, blah, blah. Like, what am I going to do without this job and all of that? But I did what I needed to do. And, and then it came time to, potentially go back to my job. Um, after having taken, about 9 months of what I call like kind of rest and retreat and maybe a little bit of detox from the corporate grind.
Mhm.
And I was just so clear, like I couldn't put myself back there. It's not what I'm here to do. Didn't want to live like that anymore.
Mm.
So it has been, I mean, quite a journey. And I have to put in and mention the book, The Success Trap, that you wrote because, and again, I know no one can see me that's listening, but I make this like expression of like mind blown because it was for me my lifeline to feeling like okay, this is okay. Like, this is okay what I'm doing, stepping away from corporate America. I was really scared of mostly almost what were people going to think that I was, in my mid 50s and like, I'm not at the age to retire. And like, I'm leaving this job that's like this perfectly good job with a good title and again, a good salary. And like, I like had this voice like, what's wrong with me? And yet I knew I needed to leave. And the book, The Success Trap, just so supported me. I was like, yes, like you're like these big corporations are, paying people salaries, but their interests and their commitment is to like, turn a profit and return money to the shareholders. And it wasn't about necessarily taking care of employees, the well-being, like their values were not my values. And
Mm.
so it just gave me so much freedom to be like, okay, this is the path I'm on and it's okay. And I'm going to start thinking for myself. And so here I am, creating my life on my terms, which
Mm.
is so profoundly freeing.
Mm.
And just again, I'm filled with gratitude that I, you know, worked with you this year to question so many beliefs that I held,
Mm.
like to question, like, are they beliefs that I want to continue with for my life? Beliefs like even the beliefs like I'm supposed to have a job, I'm supposed to do this, I'm supposed to work in corporate. Like that was my truth from whether it was society or my family or right, that was just how I was supposed to live. And like with you, like I started questioning it. Like, is that really true? Like, is there another way? Like, do I have to suffer in a job that I was crushing my soul? I mean, it's the only way to put it, not putting it lightly. It was just crushing my soul. And it was a very personal experience because no one on the outside knew that. On the outside, it looked good. I was doing a good job. And yet it just, again, it just wasn't my truth. And so, again, here I am figuring out what's next and leaning heavily in the direction of starting to pursue a coaching career so that I can profoundly support other people that perhaps feel like stuck, whether it's a job or a relationship, but it's just not working for them.
Mm.
And I just so know what that's like. And I feel like I suffered a long time and I learned so much. And my God, is it worth it to wake up and really wake up and start to be aware of like how I want to live and to support other people to do that, and of course, handle different kinds of environments that, again, whether it's, people, places, or things that occur to them as toxic, that don't resonate with them, that, you know, crush their soul even a little. Like I have such experience in that. And, I was credentialed as a coach actually in my early 30s when I
Mhm.
first took a break from corporate. But I went back. I went back because it thought I was what I was supposed to do. And here
Mm.
I am 25 years later, like actually starting to pursue doing what I think I'm here to do. And
Mm.
so thank you, Amina, for like all of your support on that because the coaching that we had together, I mean, I know there were a lot of times I was in tears. It was like even learning that like you created a safe space for me to actually start to like speak my truth and think like what is important to me, what are my values. And it is, again, it's been my path to liberation. And this prioritizing my self-care, which I think you mentioned at the beginning, which was so important for me, is an absolute foundational part of what I'm doing right now is taking care of me in
Mm.
a way that, I mean, if ever I did before, it was like a way to like just keep going faster, more, stronger, quicker, busier. It was never to have it be like a platform to to like build my life from.
Mm.
So it's just been a profound experience. And I know you asked me one question and I probably just talked for 10 minutes, but there you go.
No, it's wonderful. You hit quite a few of the points that I wanted to ask you about. So
Mhm.
thank you for flowing so freely and
Mhm.
on being addressing the questions that I think other people will have. Because one thing that struck me is that that you were super successful and your organization wanted you. It's not that you had to leave. You people wanted you to stay.
Yes.
And you were offered, I think, other opportunities, which you turned down. Um, because of the other thing that struck me is that you wanted to take time, which is
Hmm.
something that people feel they can't do, which is take time or step back or create some time to be able to think about what they really want
Hmm.
rather than what they think they should do.
Yeah.
And of course, not everybody's in a position to not be in paid employment.
Right.
Everybody has to work out their own circumstances and situation and what is responsible for them. But what I found is that a lot of the time there's more leeway than we think.
Hmm.
That we're actually just pushing ourselves because of old beliefs that we've
Hmm.
internalized about having to work or making X amount of money or having whatever lifestyle or status or whatever at the cost of our health and our well-being and our relationship and our relationships and our happiness. So,
Hmm.
um, what would you say was maybe a turning point where you realized it didn't have to be that way and what would you what would you say to someone who's saying, "Well, I don't know, I have to stay
Hmm.
in, I have to stay in
Yeah.
the game."
No, it's so real. I mean, I think what I'd say is, it's like, and this is something from your book too. It's like the sunk cost fallacy. It's like you have invested so much in whether it's your current job, maybe it's your training, or maybe it's your education. Maybe you've spent like hundreds and hundreds of $1,000s to train to be a certain something. Um, and and you stay because you've invested so much. And I think, like, for me, I say, like, invested so much was more of almost like the image, like that's who I was. I had my title and I was in corporate, and I was, I was proud of like what I'd accomplished. But in this process of stepping away, I mean, the phrase that keeps coming back to me is, and I've said this to other people, is it's like how much do you need to be happy?
Mm,
And what other people's opinions of you and what you have, like, what impact does that really have on the quality of your life? And it
mm,
was questioning these things. Like, I have become fascinated by like my I mean, listen, I have some designer handbags, not a ton, but I have designer handbags since it costs, that I've treated myself to when I made, this big salary. But I'm like, what? Like, I've just realized that a lot of that for me was to look the part, or in the society in which we live, like they're like almost subconsciously like that informed how I felt about me, and like with, I mean, don't even get me started like marketing and advertising society, but it is so this never ending, in my opinion, in my experience, this machine of we need more, we need something that has this brand name on it. And I am so clear, for me, that does not bring and did not bring me fulfillment and happiness and peace. And it didn't soothe my soul at all.
mm,
And so I think from the compensation standpoint, it is to look at like, what do you really need? And like that in of itself, that inquiry can start, I think, to uncover like the thing that I said that was so profound for me was to start questioning like my beliefs, to
mm,
start questioning it. And, yes, we all need money to live 100%. And I think it's then like, well, what does that look like? Like, again, it's kind of goes back to like the truth for me, like like it looks very different. And I like nice things, but I'm also so aware of society and like what society's values and what they put on people, and what I think people, and me being part of the people, like if we're not waking up and being aware and present, we just consume and we get more. And it's that treadmill that just doesn't stop. And I guess I feel like I'm certainly spending less money than I did,
Mhm.
but am so much happier. Like I am so much happier. Um, and so I think again, it's this interesting inquiry into like, what do you want your life to be like, and what do things cost you? You know, I used to say this to uh, like just even when I was working and I was in a leadership position, and I used to talk about the cost of currency with people. When it came time for like, say, a raise, or they wanted, or they were disappointed they didn't get it. And they were thinking about leaving. I would just say there's different types of currency. I would always say that money is one type of currency, but then there's maybe flexibility. That's currency, right? Like there's all different
Mm,
types. And I think it's for every individual to figure out like what is the currency that they value most. Like for me, it is freedom. I will
mm,
not trade that in for any, I've been offered jobs since I left corporate doing similar to what I was doing. And unequivocally, I said, you know, like, not like it's not what I value anymore.
mm.
So I just think, again, it's just questioning the values. And, I also think like, yeah, we all have to be responsible, but if we step back and look at money as just the only currency that exists, I think we're totally trapped in like society selling, right? More, better, bigger, faster, all of that.
Yeah, yeah. And I really appreciate the sense of integrity that you have, that this is not aligned
Mm,
for me. I'm very clear about that, and I'm going to take action that reflects my deeper truth, or you said the truth, which for people who are listening who might be wondering, what do you mean by truth? I don't know if you want to say a little bit about that, but to me, it's like the values, the things that really matter to me
mm,
beyond sort of material safety. That
yeah,
is important, but can't be the only driver if we really want to feel at ease, at peace, and
yeah.
free, truly
Um,
fulfilled.
no, I mean, I will. And you know what? I kind of almost not, I'm not going to say regret because I said it, but the whole thing with truth, it's funny because sometimes my brother would say that like years ago. And I'd be like, what does that mean? Like, that's so ridiculous. Like you're speaking in like a language I don't even understand. And so I know that I say it, because I guess the way I would say it without sounding like potentially like, like I use the term woo woo, which I'm so not, right? I don't think I'll ever be considered woo woo after all this time in corporate.
You're
But
one of
as
the
I'm
most
on,
rational people I know.
yeah, well, thank you. But as I'm on this journey, I guess what I mean by that when I say it is, like what resonates deeply with me.
Hmm.
And I think, I use the term like kind of, I've used the term waking up a bit, like more awareness that I have of being like not reactive, not on autopilot, but really intentionally thinking for myself, right? Questioning these limiting beliefs. It
Hmm.
is what resonates with me, what feels right. Um, like I believe that like I do know, and I have to get quiet and I have to like get off the treadmill a bit, if you will, to
Mm.
actually even start to learn and to figure that out. And I think it's actually it got really clear for me really easily what resonated with me and what felt aligned with me
Mm.
when I got out of all the busyness, right? That constant go, go, go. And I'll also say that there's many times in my life, and I especially can put this to in relationships, right? Where I used to use the term, I would just ignore it. Meaning I would know, let's say, if there was something about someone that maybe wasn't going to be the healthiest person to get in a relationship with,
Mhm.
I would just ignore it. So I think that oftentimes, and maybe some people can relate to this, we know
Mm.
it's yet we know deep down inside if something's not right or not a fit, whether it's a person or a job or it's a situation, and yet that's just how we live. Is we of course keep doing it. You stay in that role, you stay in that relationship, you just do what you're supposed to do. And I think we ignore like what is maybe like, again, I'm going to go back. I don't know what else to say besides like our truth, like what really rings as like right
Mm,
for us, whether it's a choice. And
mm,
so instead of avoiding it, it's to start, for me, I started like hitting it head on. And with that, this wasn't a walk in the park. I mean, this was like a deep inquiry into, all the reasons like I took on certain beliefs and I did certain actions that maybe weren't what I wanted to do with my life.
mhm,
Um, and so I think, you know, it's looking much more on the inside for my own validation and worth than what I spent most of my life up until recently doing, which was looking on
mm,
the outside for
mm,
that
mm.
validation and worth.
Yeah, yeah, thanks for sharing that. And yeah, I wanted to ask you and in the Success Trap book, burnout's defined as the repeated compromise of our values
Mm,
and intuition. So it's not just running out of steam because you're working too hard. It's also this ignoring what's true for us, what's, the sense that maybe this isn't right for me, or maybe that isn't okay. Maybe I don't want to work on that. I want to work on
mm.
this. Um, and I wanted to ask you what was the experience? Because you said the success trap supported you in going part of the journey, maybe leaving the role, but then coaching supported you with another part of the journey, maybe which was settling into the new situation. Can you say a little bit about what it was that the coaching work supported you with, or how it worked for you? It works differently for different people, obviously.
Right, right. Yeah, well just again, so I think the book was very much about like there was somebody else there. Everything I read, it resonated with me. Like I may not have put it into my own words before, and I may not have thought it that way, but in reading it in print, it just again, like I'm like mind blown. It was so, I know no one can see, but the book is so mangled. I've got it underlined and highlighted and pages flipped over. I go back
Oh,
to
can we have
sometimes.
can I see it? Well, you're on
Yeah.
video, so people can see it.
Oh, okay. That I go back to, like you can see. I mean,
Oh,
like
wow.
and like pages flipped over, like all these nuggets of gold in there that I will go back to when I have to remind myself, like, this is okay what I'm doing. It might not be the popular path, but
Oh.
um, yeah. And so I think coaching, one of the biggest things, I mean, and working with you is that I experienced in the beginning, and obviously we talked about this, was I came with like some anxiety to our sessions because for me it felt like I I had to perform. There was something about performance because I lived a life, in corporate where I was performing, right? There's performance reviews. You get reviewed on your performance. So
Hmm.
I was, um, and I remember our first session, I was upset. Like I felt so vulnerable and exposed. And that wasn't a way. You don't bring that part of yourself to work, right? You don't necessarily,
Hmm.
you know,
Yeah, it's not
it's not
professional.
part of the performance, right? It's not part of that environment. It doesn't really
Yeah,
go with that.
professionals don't have emotions.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and we're rewarded like I think machines too, right? It's all goal driven, it's all externally based. And so the coaching process for me was a lot about like getting releasing, I guess is a better word, of releasing like my performance mindset that
Mm,
was all about, again, externally based. It was a lot about, well, what are you going to think of me? Like, I didn't want to reveal like my fears, you know, my like, yeah, again, a lot of my fears or my limiting beliefs were hard to talk about. And I mean, you helped me identify what they were, that they've just been going for so long. They're part of my narrative. I think that's the thing.
mm,
Without the coaching, it's just the world I live in, the mindset and the thoughts I swim in, they're just part of me. And
mm,
the coaching process helped me notice them, like profoundly notice them, and then in real time start to practice with them. Okay, so I see that I'm thinking X. That is very limiting. It's based upon past, right, beliefs that I've acquired over the years. And it had me again start to have the freedom to be like, okay, like that is not something that serves me.
Mm,
That, and maybe it did at one point, right? Like maybe it did at one point.
hmm
It no longer serves me. And now I'm going to, and I get to work on figuring out what is a belief I want to replace it with. And that kind of brings me back full circle to, how do I want to live my life? What is important to me? And one of the really big things, like I'm that probably will resonate with other people is this, like, what do other people think of you? Like, that's a big one for me. And when I left the corporate world, let me tell you, anyone who's listening, people don't really think that much about you. They really don't. And it was fascinating to me how few people I've, that I am in contact with from the corporate world, people that I choose to be, that I care about, but all the other people I think about, people I led and managed to, like, I would lose sleep over them and their careers. I'm like, I've never talked to them again. Like, it's just, so anyway, I just share that because that is another thing about, like, that as I look to let go of, like, worrying about that does not serve me. It is not something I want to put my energy on.
hmm
And that is an ongoing practice, especially even Amina doing this with you. Like if anyone sees this that I know, I might be like, oh, I'm so exposed. But you know what? This is me and I'm honoring me. And I am, again, wanting to support other people on creating a life that resonates with them because just because it resonates with them. And like that's each of our individual choices. And so this is the journey that I'm on now. And it's it's exciting and it's liberating. And I'm very focused on, again, thanks to a lot of identifying a lot of these limiting beliefs, working with you is, my freedom is really important to me. And one of the things I'll say, just as I think about corporate, my life there, it was like all goal focused. And we still talk a lot about goals in the world. And we got to in the my coaching with you that like I don't want like goals are I almost have a reaction to them because I'm so related to performance, related to goals. And so one of the things, and this also goes back to your book about like the whole creative cycle, which I've never thought of myself as creative ever. But I'm learning like that the creative cycle is not about achieving success externally. It's about expressing something internal. So I'm feeling like as the more I take care of myself, that, my journey is to express something internal and not have it be that, well, I need to do this because someone told me to in order to get someone to tell me I'm doing well at something. I want to do well, but I want to do well on things that matter to me and are, an authentic expression of who I am. And it's exciting and terrifying all at the same time, but it is it feels again much I feel much more liberated than doing something that I felt like just was just not what I wanted to be doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing so freely and so generously from your journey, Ginger.
Mm.
I really appreciated working with you over the 6 months and noticing how the
Mm.
weight lifted
Yes.
and you were starting to just trust your own intuition, your own ideas, and explore what's next.
Mm.
So I wonder if we talk a little bit about that because what I notice is that there is a thread usually with people that there is something they're really passionate about. Maybe they love supporting people more than they love technical, or maybe they love technical more than it doesn't matter. But there's
Mm.
usually signs. There are usually signs. So you said you actually qualified as a coach.
Hmm.
20, was it 25 years ago, you said?
It was when I was, well, 20 years ago. No, it
20.
probably was closer to 25. It was in my early 30s. And so, yes, I'm 56, which I've disclosed. So,
And you've been one of the people on the team in the C-suite that people look up to as a supportive force or as a regulating force because you get people and you were able to create great deals, if I understood correctly, that you actually were performing at a high level because of how you were able to
mm,
engage with people on a meaningful level.
Yeah.
And so now you want to bring all of that experience in leadership and working with people. Um, is it okay to share the industry that you were in?
Yeah, sure. I was in the insurance industry, and I'm just relocating because when I was back in corporate, I would never have a phone that wasn't fully charged and ready to go. But now that I'm not, I actually need to plug in my phone. So there you go. No big deal. But yeah, I was in the insurance industry, and just one correction, I was never was in the C-suite. I was in senior level leadership, not the C-suite. And so just to clarify that, which yeah, that my mindset could have never gotten me there because I always felt like I feel like companies they their job is to write to return, make a profit.
Mm,
Um and it is performance leads to profit, but
mhm,
people perform. And I was always one person in my roles, I always cared about the people. And my motto was like, do right by the people, do
mhm,
right by the business. But
mm,
if you take care of the people, outcomes will unfold.
mm,
And, different companies have very, very different cultures. And,
mhm,
I think that there's, different types of environments and people create those environments. So
mm,
I always considered myself to be, you know, like a servant leadership was my thing where I was always like, my job was I worked for my people, the
yeah.
people that I led, I worked for them to try to support them. And I think there's, again, very different types of people and different types of managers. And I don't, I think there's a lot of people in those roles. A lot of people, at least that I know, would say they hated being a manager. They hated having people report to them. They just wanted to do their job. Maybe an enigma to some because that was my favorite part of the job, was,
Mhm,
supporting people, developing people. The whole notion of like good leadership is to, you know, praise in public and criticize in private. Certain things that just were to keep people feeling empowered. And I loved that. I actually did start a mentorship program in one of my roles, probably about 5 years before I left the corporate world. And that was not something that was part of my job, but I started it from scratch. And it was profound and it was wonderful. And it really was coaching and developing, young folks
mm,
and, teaching them things that I wish I'd learned when I was in my, early 20s in the corporate world.
mm.
So,
Yeah. So you're picking this thread up as you rearrange your life and I know you're spending more time taking care of yourself, but also with loved ones, with family, with your husband, and enjoying more of what you've created in your life, whilst also
mm,
exploring this new pathway. And you've exploring working with clients right now, exploring what kind of work, how you want to guide, who you want to guide. And I'm very excited to be with you on this journey. Is there anything else you want to say about that, about who you'd like to connect with and where they can connect with you?
yeah,
You
thanks,
know.
Amina. And I would be remiss if I didn't, when you mentioned my husband and my family and the time I've gotten with them is, I'm not, it almost brings me to tears. You can probably tell, like, I get moved just thinking about that, like the profound gift it is to be with, my family, my husband, my stepchildren, my nieces and nephews, and the amount of time I've gotten to spend with them is
Mm,
something I wouldn't exchange for anything. So, like, going back to like currency, like, there's no money in the world that would replace some of that time I've gotten with them. And I
mm,
just do want to mention super quickly, like when you mentioned my husband, so here I was, like I was like in my early 50s, so call it like 5 years ago, working a lot, right? Going back to stressed out, working a lot. That was the focus of my life. Single. And when it did come across my plate for a bigger role, I was so tempted. More money, a really profound title. And like, I was so, from like every external reason, like that, why that would be great. I would look good. I was a woman. I'd have this bigger title. And I just was like, I wanted a life for myself. Was recently before that in a new job in that company for like 7 months or so. And I just was like, I need time for me. And literally one of the things was like, I wanted to get married. I wanted to like have a family. Like have a family like my husband, I have a husband. So I said no to that opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I was on a panel speaking and someone asked me, do you think that you're going to get like that's going to like derail you? And I said, maybe,
Mm-hmm.
because I knew, and anyone listening to this that's in that environment knows, often you have to say yes, or you feel like you have to say yes, or you have to throw your hat in the ring for a new role because you think you're expected to. And it all goes back to, but what do you want for you? So I did say no. And that within that year is when I met the man I married. So what
Mm-hmm.
did I get? I chose me by not saying no to a bigger job with more money. And I actually had time to like create the life that I have now. Like, and that started with my husband. So I just share that because as people, it seems so frightening, right? Of what you're gonna let go of if you leave something. I don't think we give ourselves enough like time or even freedom to think about, but what could we attract or create in our lives? So my husband is, I mean, and I got four wonderful stepchildren with them like that are, just, I mean, it's been the biggest blessing in my life. So I just share
Mm-hmm.
that. And I think going back to your question about like the who I want to work with and what I want to do, again, like this is going to be a labor of love for me. This, supporting people and coaching them. I know what it's like to be just on that treadmill. And, we didn't even talk about like imposter syndrome, but I know what it's like to just keep going and going and going and never quite feeling like just maybe not having the best view of yourself, even though everything outside of you seems to line up and look good. Like I was the queen of looking good and not quite feeling that way on the inside. And I want to support people in any kind of environment where they really like don't feel free. Like I kind of use the word like toxicity and whether it's a toxic relationship or a toxic work environment or it's you're just your toxicity in your mind, right? Like you're just in this like bad neighborhood and it's just the way you're thinking. To support people in you know figuring out like how they want to live. And I think about like awareness is the very first pillar for me, is like waking up. I say a lot, I usually put an adjective in there, but I don't want to do this, because it's like waking the up.
Yeah,
It's the
yeah.
first part of it. And then like this authenticity is the next thing that I think about, is like, this again, part of my journey is what's authentic, like what is really an authentic expression of me, and like who am I really, like who am I? Like I'm learning things about myself like that. Like I was just like, it's like coming like not hiding anymore, I guess. Like I'm being a little more freer with who I am, no matter
Mm-hmm.
what environment it is. So it's this awareness, authenticity, and then alignment, like working with people to help create a life that's aligned with their truest self. And I don't say balance because balance people talk about a lot, and everything doesn't have to be balanced, right? Like maybe work and your family doesn't have to be balanced 50-50. Maybe you decide it wants to be different. And what are the different parts of your life and how do they align with you? And like, what does an aligned life look like? And so, as I'm, on this journey, I haven't really like I don't have like my like what do you call it? They used to call it incorporate your elevator speech, exactly what you do. Like I'm still kind of figuring it
Oh, I
out.
love
But
it. You've got your three principles. So first
yeah,
of all, waking up, authenticity, alignment.
yeah.
And
So and working with people in whatever, whatever that looks like for them.
Mm.
Um,
And you're
that
open to that right now.
yes, I am.
So
I'm
you heard
open
it
to.
here. If you want to connect with Ginger, have a conversation, learn from her journey, and maybe explore what it's like to be supported by her
Mm.
as someone who's been a leader in corporate and who has experience in coaching and mentoring, then please reach out to her on the email address that you should hopefully see here, Ginger V. Schultz, SCHULTZ @gmail.com.
Yes, yes. Thank you. And anyone who's interested, I would love to do a quick intro call just to connect and see if there's any kind of path and journey we can take together with me supporting you. And just if you're listening to this, to me, that's like a sign, like there's something there. So I say, the sooner you're like start to be like, give voice to it and really be like, yeah, okay, and just take a little tiny bit of action. I'd love to be that person if that works for you. And I just wish you all the best. I think life is short, and I just think the more people that wake up a bit and start living according to you know, their own inner voice, if you will, that I think we'll all be in a better place, actually. So,
Beautiful.
Amina, thank you so much for all of your support. Thank you, and thank you so much for asking me to be in this conversation with you.
You're welcome. Thank you for sharing so authentically. And I'm sure a lot of people get a lot of insights from what you shared and feel less isolated on their
Mm.
journey. So I really appreciate you for that. I look forward to being with you in the sanctuary. So for those who are listening, the sanctuary is a 4-month mastermind to relax, realign, so you can create the career and life you truly want. If you're interested, then please reach out to me. We start very soon. And for more stories like this, for insights on leadership and career transformation, then join the Wise Wednesdays newsletter at my website, www.dramina.com. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being you and being on your journeys, and look forward to connecting sometime soon. Bye bye from both of us.
Bye bye.